Well, shit finally hit the fan today in Minnesota, folks. Actually, yesterday went viral on the internet. This 37 million views on the Tim Walz scandal that is just finally getting to come to light involving, started with the Somali thing. There's no doubt about it. Our government has dropped Haitians in West Virginia and Somalians in Minnesota and illegals from every country in every state. But when they were doing these overnight flights, a lot of times these what they call patriation flights or some crap like that, they would bring them in from one country or another across the map. These countries that we normally don't let people in from: Somalia, Sudan, Chad, all these South Africa or North African countries, which are literally, like Trump says, a shithole, who don't run their country well enough to function, and we want to bring them here in the middle of the night. Well, that's what went on for 4 years, and we all know this at this point. But more than that, we need to know where they all went. We heard about the Haitians eating the dogs and the cats, and that was no joke. It was because so many got dropped into one neighborhood. That's what happens. And we're starting to realize the same thing has happened in Minnesota, just like we have our jihad communities here around Dallas that have all migrated here for some reason. They have got a huge Muslim community up in Minnesota as well, always have, and it has only grown and grown. And this guy right here has catered to it to the point that they were stealing votes by proxy of giving our money away. That's all there is to it. That's the bottom line. Food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, housing services, reallocating funds from God knows what, including child food programs, in order to repatriate the money to, or reappropriate the money to whatever cause they thought was necessary, which included bringing these suckers in our country without anybody knowing. It's just the plain facts, folks. And I've got some reading to do over here on the Gateway Pundit, a little bit of meat and potatoes of this information. It's huge. They say there's over $1 billion in tax dollars that have been stolen. I'm going to say it's several billion. But at this point, we have already 480. It was 400 yesterday, but now it's 480 people that have worked. Basically, people that just work in the passing out of these Department of Human Services funds, dealing with these people coming through the door that want free everything. And some people started screaming about fraud about a year ago, and Tim Walz wasn't trying to hear it. Matter of fact, he was threatening people with, you're a racist if you say anything that is offensive to these people that we just want to get some free stuff to, no matter where they came from, no matter whether they're citizens or not. This was a whole plan to give them all voter ID, get them on Social Security cards, or give them Social Security cards, get them identification, get them on the food stamp program, get them on Medicaid, Medicare, get them a job, help them get housed, and then they become permanent, illegitimate citizens. And with or without anybody checking them, pretty much they, without being checked, they can vote. And that's the scariest part of it all for me. But most of all, it is really awful that our country is literally being saturated with these folks and have been for a very long time. I'm glad to see some exposure to it, if nothing else. But I think Trump is really pissed off at this point at what has happened. How many people have to get shot before we realize our country is full of these predators and murderers and jihadists that chant death to America in their dreams and online to each other? What are we going to do with this? Hopefully we're going to get tough and get some stuff done, start deporting the crap out of these people, vet every person that was let in our country, even if it's 20 plus million. Need to check every single one of them, where they're at, how many kids they funneled through, what business do they have here, have they paid any taxes, are we supporting them at this point, can we find them and get them out of the country if they don't have an actual asylum claim? That's what really needs to happen, and we need to do it in expedited time. Just the facts, folks. But let's go ahead and do a little bit of reading here. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is in a world of shit, I would say. They say they have got 3 different fraud allegations against him. hundreds of millions and billions of dollars went poof in the night. It says, after Governor Tim Walz is under fire after employees from Minnesota Department of Human Services, and I got a story about that, issued a bombshell statement accusing the far-left governor of orchestrating and sweeping cover-up to shield the sprawling Somali immigrant fraud ring that stole more than $1 billion in taxpayer funds and punishing whistleblowers who tried to stop it. See, this is just with the DHS. This has got nothing to do with Social Security or all the other government benefits, a lot of the other government benefits that you can apply for at different locations. So this is the only money they're talking about. So for the record, this is probably multiple billions. It's according to the Department of Human Services insiders. Walz not only ignored early warnings, but actively retaliated against agency employees who sounded the alarm. They now accuse his administration of using political intimidation, monitoring threats, and agency manipulation to suppress evidence and silence witnesses. There was a lot of people complaining about this, and they tried to shut them up. And these are just people making $15 an hour, $18 an hour. Realized what's going on is not right. Had a few Trump supporters in the building trying to tell on him. As the Gateway pundit reported, 70 members of the Somali community in Minnesota were involved in stealing $250 million in COVID funds that were intended to feed children. Jesus. Millions of dollars were stolen from American taxpayers and sent overseas to Somalia, and 80% of the money has not been recovered. Of course not. They over there smoking it up, I'm sure. So 7 defendants were tried in connection with the scheme on charges related to stealing more than $40 million in taxpayer funds. So that's 3 crimes already. 5 were found guilty. However, the FBI is still investigating an attempt by a Somali woman to bribe one of the jurors with $120,000 in cash. Oh, these people are just corrupt. However, the fraud extends deeper, with multiple schemes in the nature of occurring over the last 5 years. Of course, there's more schemes. Per the New York Times, federal prosecutors say that 59 people have been convicted in those schemes so far, and that more than $1 billion in taxpayer money has been stolen in 3 plots that are under investigation. During an interview, NBC Christian Welker got on to Tim Walz by asking him a few questions about the Somali people and this bank fraud and all that stuff. We'll go ahead and get into that here directly. Instead of me reading it to you, I'll just show you the video clip. That'll be the next clip. But I want to show you this on this page real quick. We don't want to listen too much to Kristen Welker. She's a horrible one. But here, this Minnesota staff fraud reporting commentary is what they've had to resort to because the Minnesota Department of Human Services normal web page had 480 whistleblowers on there and got shut down over here on X, and so people have been pleading with Elon Musk to reinstate it. I guess because it wasn't tagged as a official government site. It got taken down, but I believe it is in process of being put back up. And so they went on to using this Minnesota staff fraud reporting commentary instead to continue to spill out the truth. These are the employees right here. Excuse me. It says Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota, and this got 37 million views yesterday. Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. Let me say that again. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got an opposite response. Tim systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitors, threats, and repression, and all kinds of other intimidation tactics. Dang. Said people were racist to mention it. They tend to do that, It's a Democrat thing. A damning quote on Tim Walz's failure to stop the fraud consuming Minnesota. No one was doing anything about the red flags, he said. It was like someone was stealing money from the cookie jar and they kept refilling it. Wow. How fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system on Tim Walz's watch. Prosecutors say members of Somali's diaspora, a group with growing political power, were largely responsible. That's the Somali cartel, for anybody that doesn't know. President Trump has drawn national attention to the scandal amid his crackdown on immigration. You can take that Ilhan Omar with you when they kick all these illegals out, and you take her too. I think she's in this country illegally. She married her brother, is what they're saying. So if that's the case, her and her brother can go ride a camel, as far as I'm concerned. The DHS employees with over 480 members added on X, having worked directly with you, Tim Walz. We don't need to see MRI results to know that there is a disconnect in not only your intellectual abilities, that's what Trump said earlier in the day, but your ability to understand ethics and good governance. Glad to see the whole country is seeing how unethical Tim Walz is. Having worked directly with you, Tim Walz, you are so busted. Tim Walz has released the MRI results for Trump, and they were released, and they're perfect. The best, as Trump would say. Yeah, Tim Walz is in deep shit. They've caught him 9 ways from Sunday looking the other way or being a part of the problem, however you want to call it. Complicit to the illegal immigration being pushed in the state behind the funds that were being dispersed, because you know damn well if this money went out the door, the Walz family benefited. You know it. You know they did. They weren't just there to help these poor Somalians gain some weight or something. Wasn't none of that going on. I think they were stealing the money. But I think the Somalians were in on the whole stealing the money. Sad to say, but I believe that's what
Welcome back, and joining me now is
happened.
Democratic Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Governor Walz, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Thanks you so much for being here. I do want to start with the tragic shooting of the 2 National Guard service members. In the aftermath of the shooting, as you know, President Trump has responded by vowing to crack down on refugees, including from countries beyond Afghanistan, specifically targeting the Somali community in your home state. He also described you using a slur widely regarded as derogatory toward people with intellectual disabilities. I want to read for you what he said, Governor, and get your reaction on the other side. He said, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope they'll be left alone. The seriously blank governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing either through fear, incompetence, or both. What is your response to President Trump, Governor?
Damn.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me express my condolences to the families of the National Guardsmen. They're out there doing their duty. They serve us. As a commander-in-chief of the National Guard and someone who served, we have a responsibility to put them in a position where they're protected and they have a clear mission. And so I would express my condolences there. Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, as both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful. We have fought 3 decades to get this out of our schools. Kids know better than to use it. But look, this is what Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language. And
I just want to break off here just for a second. You see what he's doing? He is trying to deflect from the question that was asked of him about what's going on. His first answer is, well, it's Donald Trump's fault. It's all Donald Trump. It's really bad how Donald Trump insults people. If insulting people and taking care of business is the worst thing Trump does, dude, you're in a lot of trouble. Oh, jazz hands. God, can you imagine we were this close to having him as our vice president? Thank God. We'd be living in little Somalia right now. Jesus.
mainly, look, at first I think it's just because he's a not a good human being. But secondly, to distract from his incompetency. We know we just came through a Thanksgiving where prices are up. We know people are concerned about heating their homes as we're experiencing blizzard. Secure our border, but do it with dignity and respect to the American tradition of respecting immigrants and refugees as a beacon of hope.
Well, speaking of the Somali community, President Trump
Here we go.
Is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state.
It's not just Somalis. It's South Africans. It's Sudanese. It's Guatemalans. It's Venezuelans. It's all the South American countries. It's the Chinese. It's everybody that was let in this country illegally that you made a bid for and brought them on in knowing that the money would flow.
We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can, but to demonize an
because he's so successful as a governor, his state attracts criminals. Y'all catch that?
Entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy. And as you heard Senator Kelly say, this president has cut a lot of inspector generals. He's cut programs that could help us tackle this on. So we'll take it on. We'll put folks in jail. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your religion is, your color. If you're committing crimes, these are programs that were meant to serve students with autism, to housing, and to making sure people had enough to eat. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top, lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to
He never answered the question.
live. People are taking advantage of that. They're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better. But that's Donald Trump. Deflect, demonize, come up with no solutions. He's not going to help fix anything on fraud. My God, there's a big difference between fraud.
I wonder if the people of Minnesota, the unmelanated privileged people of Minnesota, as they call us, white privilege or whatever, or even just the masses, no matter what nationality you come from, I wonder if the residents of Minnesota that have been there for years appreciate this influx of this Somali community, this jihadist community, and all these things that seem to be allowed under the Tim Walz, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris creep show that we went through for 4+ years. That shit's over, and I'm so glad, and now it's time to clean up the mess and deport the crap out of these people. We need to go through the entire vetting process of everybody that was let in here on a visa, that was let in here under SIVs, special visas, like this guy that was the shooter the other day, and everybody in Minnesota that doesn't speak English. Let's start there. I'm all for cleaning out the closets, and a lot of these people we know for a fact where to find them, where they're located, where they're getting benefits from. That's going to be the catch-all. When DHS goes to their records and says, okay, Habib Akbar lives at 2121 Smith Street, and he's receiving food stamps every month, and God knows what else, we'll be able to go talk to Habib. I'm ready for that, folks. It may get ugly before it gets better, but the end result will be we are going to get some people out of this country quick and in a hurry. I don't think we were doing near enough up to this point, but I think now there is a new incentive, and it's called, in the name of national security, our safety. We got to get it done, even if we got to put the military on it. That's the way I feel about it. Maybe some of you don't feel that way, but I can honestly say that we got to do something. It's gotten radical. So this was casually printed in the New York Times as if it isn't the most batshit insane thing you've ever seen. U.S. immigration, fearful but determined, altered lives for non-citizens. Mr. Biden allowed many migrants to enter the country temporarily, of course, as a way to incentivize them to avoid crossing the border illegally. So sneak on in temporarily, so that way you won't have to come across the border because they got a wall down there. Those people became eligible to work in the United States because they got here on a plane. Receive Social Security, well, of course. That's how they get them registered to vote. And in some cases, most cases, received a handout. Federal benefits, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Now, how do you get on Social Security for all those years you didn't work in this country? But when Doge was going through looking at the IRS and Social Security Administration, he was realizing there is millions and millions of people that have been added to all of our books, all of our ledgers, all of our numbers. 10 or 15 more million people added to our Social Security, added to Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps in just the last 4 years. You think that's a coincidence? I think not. And I think that was the Doge thing was starting to find all this stuff out, and that's one of the reasons they're trying to cancel Doge. Was because of the fact they were getting too close to the people that were involved with making all these billions of dollars with the NGOs to destroy our country. And this involved Republicans as well, I'm sure. They'll take the money. They don't care who it hurts. They say, the country's a big place. It'll only hurt a handful at a time. It says the Minnesota Department of Human Services employee account has been suspended again. Can we get this fixed, Elon Musk? People have been screaming at the top of their lungs all day about this. Minnesota Department of Human Services employees' direct account has been suspended. That's actually the second account that had been suspended today. It says, I can personally attest to this group's legitimacy. These are the real whistleblowers trying to shine a light on the fraud in Minnesota. So we can't let Tim Walz win on this one. Says, looks like at Minnesota DHS account is on its way back up. They just verified account. Oh, so there's people checking it in real time, folks. Wow. Temporarily restricted. Okay. They're working out the kinks. I'm glad it says they are back. There we go. 2 hours ago, they are back. They're pissed about the exposure, obviously. They're trying to shut down Twitter. Mass deportations immediately. That seems to be the consensus here. It says Tim Walz is 100%. We've already read this. I apologize. This is a cascade of systematic failures leading up to Tim Walz, agency leaders appointed by Tim Walz, willfully disregarding rules and laws to keep fraud reports quiet. Even to the extent of threatening families of whistleblowers, these same leaders are not qualified to do their jobs, instead getting leadership jobs via Tim Walz's friendship. So state government were left floundering. DFL lawmakers refuse to acknowledge fraud and deflect any serious conversation to stop fraud. Biased mainstream media such as WCCO or NPR showed absolutely no interest in covering fraud happening in our own state. Of course, programs, especially in behavioral health and disability services, were built without any guardrails against fraud, and all these attempts to extract more funding from legislature and the federal government. So they're using these programs to rip off. They got the government footing the bill to the state because the state says they can account for this many people sick, this many people disabled, this many people need something. That's what it boils down to. If you're getting any of these phone calls or have been getting any of these phone calls or seeing these stupid ads on your phone, just get free money, and they're calling, want to know if you've been signed up for Affordable Care Act and all this. They are literally, as we speak, folks, calling nonstop on my phone, my wife's phone, pretty regular, trying to get somebody to give them some information so they can sign you up for Obamacare, Affordable Care Act. Whether you ever use it or not, once you give them your information, tax dollars are being funneled on the account that you're another patient. Don't do it, folks. Don't answer those calls. Don't answer those questions. Don't play those games. And definitely don't listen to those commercials. And don't call them back. Don't hit the link. Those Moesha trying to give away $5,000. That's all that was about. That was all a scam that was put out for weeks and weeks and weeks. I got tired of hearing it. It was all about one thing: getting your information so they can sign you up, whether you know what the hell you're being signed up for or not, because that's how the tax dollars flow. Since it's been revealed that the Somali feeding our future scam, which stole over $250 million from Minnesota Department of Education, this was the second scam, did so by threatening to label officials as a racist in the media unless payments were released, and the tactics they worked for over a year. Dang. Oh, R word gets them every time. It's ridiculous. Says Feeding Our Future later sued the agency, which continued reimbursing claims and approving new sites in the months that followed. A report by Minnesota's nonpartisan office of the legislative auditor about the lapse of that enabled the milled fraud later found that the threat of litigation and negative press affected how state officials used their regulatory power. So they're saying, we're feeding people, give us the money, and if you ask questions, we're going to sue you or tell people you're a racist. Somali's average IQ is 68, yet scammed Tim Walz for $250 million. Trump may be right again. That's too funny. Yes, folks, this is all kinds of stuff going on in the news today, but this is the biggest part of the news cycle to date. For today, Tim Walz's ass is in trouble. He may have to resign as governor before this is all said and done. Says the original Twitter account on this Minnesota staff fraud reporting commentary was wrongfully closed due to an oppression of speech at DHS. We will continue to start the new Twitter account to share evidence and corruption. So somebody actually shut it down on their end, what it sounds like. And wrongdoing at our agency with the public. We need corruption to stop. We will not be silenced. So it looks like on the employee end, somebody shut it down because they had 480 whistleblowers on there chirping like birds. At DHS, if one is a whistleblower, retaliation will be swift and forceful. As state employees, it is our duty to protect taxpayers and serve the state, but DHS is intent on covering up wrongdoing. See the articles about our agency's retaliation. We need lawmakers and public to listen to us. So they got 480 people saying we're being jumped on by the boss. We're going to get fired. Something bad going to happen because we're telling the truth. Breaking, a member of Governor Tim Walz's administration in Minnesota has been arrested for vandalizing parked Tesla vehicles. Oh, so they were part of that deal too. It says Dylan Brian Adams, 33, a fiscal policy analyst for the state of Minnesota, was filmed keying a number of parked Teslas. Yeah, I think I remember that story. It's coming back to haunting, folks. There's not enough money in the world for me to want to import these people. I'm just being honest with you, folks. I don't love money that much. I'd rather have my country instead of $1 in my pocket if it involves importing millions of people. Come on now. This is ridiculous. These people are way too greedy and way too thoughtless about the future of America. Plumb sad. Says here it is, Doge confirms conspiracy theory no more. The illegal alien industry. Illegal aliens are issued Social Security numbers by Biden and Harris terrorist administration. 2021, 270,000 Social Security numbers were issued. 590,000 in 2022, almost 1 million in 2023, and 2 million, almost 100,000 in 2024, with 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Jesus. Adding the millions that receive driver's license registered to vote, and some may have already voted. Now, this here was a clip that I thought was worth watching. Doge was right.
Fox to reveal what's really going on. Doge exposed our immigration asylum disaster. That was the tip of the iceberg. Now, here's the story. Doge has found that immigration gave a work authorization document to illegals just 5 months after they filed for asylum. That document allowed them to work while they waited to hear whether their asylum request had been accepted or denied. So they could work as an illegal, knowing it would take years before their case was heard. The Immigration Department mailed them a Social Security number. No interview, no proof of identity. Just put it in the mail. Here's your number. In 2021, Doge says 270,000 new aliens were issued Social Security numbers, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and 2.1 million in 24, right before Biden left office. Doge also discovered that 1.3 million aliens are now receiving Medicaid. Millions received driver's licenses, some registered.
That's almost 4 million.
Registered to vote, and Doge says some actually did vote. Try and square that against Democrat claims that Musk is destroying Social Security and cutting Medicaid. He's not destroying. He's weeding out people who don't qualify. Who is really guilty of misinformation in this case? It is not Elon Musk.
That's a throwback moment. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's definitely something we were talking about months ago when we thought Doge was going to do so good for the country, and they exposed hundreds of billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. Then Congress says, I don't know if we want to pass $9 billion worth of cuts. Come on, man. That's all right there. When Congress doesn't want to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse, what do you do with that? Now, Caroline Leavitt led into this story as well today, and in the best of ways. She lays it down better than most. Check it out. We're going to deport them all. That's the plan, folks.
And jeopardize the safety of law-abiding American citizens. In fact, according to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership. President Trump is putting an end to this dangerous America Last approach. His position is rooted in common sense. In the wake of last week's atrocity, and jeopardize the safety of law-abiding Americans.
And just like that, she called out Tim Walz at the podium. I think Tim Walz is going to be big news for the next couple of days. A whole lot of this information about the Somali refugees, as they call them, is going to be exposed. We're going to find out half of these Somalis are truck drivers, and the rest of them are serving us food. If not, just taking advantage of the system, sitting on their asses at this point. This is not the clip I was looking for. Let me keep scrolling. I had one more clip I was going to bring y'all today, folks. No, I take that back. We'll go ahead and close with that. Caroline Leavitt just dropping bombs on the fact Trump is not playing. We are not going down this road. We are going to deport the crap out of these people by any means necessary. And the vetting process has started over. We are going to look into everybody that we got on paper, on record, in our country that need to be vetted, because we can't take Biden's word, or Mayorkas, or Blinken, or any of those friggin' idiots' word for the border's closed and we vetted everybody and nobody here is a terrorist and all the crap they tried to feed everybody while the mainstream media was all clapping like seals. Yep, nobody here is violent criminals. Just let them in, let them in. Well, we know that all in all, Trump was right when he said They're not sending their best. They're sending drug addicts, drug dealers, criminals, rapists from other countries, and they're emptying out their prisons. Remember when he said that on stage at one of his rallies, and the crowd went wild because it was such a controversial thing to say? He was right. And now we're seeing the after effects. And now we've got to fix it. That's what I got for you today, folks. Everybody like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. Sorry for such a long video.